Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Internet world, West Alabama, right here in downtown Northport. You're listening to the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. Maybe listening to us on those platforms. You're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're gonna have a fun show today. It's a huge week right here around Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Oh my goodness, what a weekend it was. Before we get into the week, we'll start with the weekend that was. And before we go back to Alabama's 42-28 victory over the LSU Tigers, I want to encourage you to subscribe to other Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcasts. We've got our friends Blue Collar Unplugged, Matthew Gibson, Blake Byler, and Jacob Pickle, bringing you all things Alabama basketball related. And yeah, so we want to get basketball season started right by subscribing to Blue Collar Unplugged. All right, you guys know what we're here for on a Monday. We're talking Alabama LSU Victory Monday. Hope everybody's got their enjoyed their Sunday, their 24-hour rule. We will break down the game and we will set up this weekend's game with Kentucky. We'll talk about the two basketball events that are happening tonight over at Coleman Coliseum. And that's going to be the game plan for the afternoon right here on the Joe Gaither Show. You can always connect with us at Joe Gaither6 on any and all the social media machines. All right, we were in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night, 42-28. The Tide rolls over LSU. Had the pleasure to be there for BamaCentral.com along with Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, Blake Byler, and Chris Walsh. We had a lot of fun up in the press box watching the game and really seeing how it all came down. And look, it was a back and forth affair on Saturday night. First off, got to give a lot of credit to the crowd. The crowd was into it from the very beginning. I was very impressed. I know you've heard me on several Mondays already this year, maybe lamenting how well the crowd was. No. The crowd came to play on Saturday night and did their part to contribute to the win. There we go. Did their part to contribute to the win. It was loud in there. It was as loud as it's been in there at least all year long, probably. It was loud in there, probably as loud as I can remember when I got down onto the field with 8 minutes left to go in the game. You could feel the energy still in the crowd. The game was kind of determined at that point, still at 42-28. But even with LSU going back out onto the field with old Nussmeier out at quarterback, the crowd was still into it and loud. The Dixieland Delight was as loud as it could have been. The atmosphere was off the jump, right off the very beginning. They did a great job on Saturday night. The Bama fans give them a huge kind of pat on the back for their efforts being into the game. And they, Alabama needed them. Alabama needed the crowd to be into the game. So let's just break down the game. All right, so you want to start offense or defense? Let's start with offense. Let's start from the very beginning. Alabama gets the ball. Goes and has, a good first run, goes and has an incomplete pass. And then they complete their first third down. A pass to C.J. Dupree. Then they get back into a third down and punt, giving up the only sack of the game. So, yeah, you have the typical Alabama first drive where Alabama's offense looks like, oh, not so good. We've got to figure this thing out. And they give up the patented first drive sack that results in a punt. And from there, I was up in the press box thinking, oh, my gosh, if that continues the rest of the night, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some issues keeping up with this LSU offense. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to the LSU offense. They were quite dangerous throughout the whole evening. You're thankful from the Alabama perspective to get a stop on fourth down on drive number drive number 2. Malachi Moore gets his hand in there on a 4th and 1. What a perfect play for Malachi Moore. You ended up getting a field goal miss on LSU's third drive. Then LSU goes 3 drives in a row scoring touchdowns. And then from that point, really Alabama's defense settled in. So from the offensive perspective, going back to the very first drive, you go 6 plays and you get your 10 yards. And from there, you're punting. And I'm thinking, oh, boy, to see, you don't want to have missed opportunities, especially against this offense. From basically the rest of the game, The rest of the game, I was pretty impressed with Alabama's efforts on offense. Now, going into the week, you guys will remember me talking on the show. I was thinking about I predicted, what did I pick? 34-28 was what was my Friday prediction. But I was very concerned with Alabama's inability to stay on the field offensively. Just what we've seen throughout the year with the USF, what we've seen this year with Texas, what we've seen this year with Arkansas. Just some of the opponents, some of the lesser defensive opponents that Alabama's faced, the Tide offense still has not really put on a consistent performance. Well, they did on Saturday night. 42 points, ended up with touchdown drives on what? 6 touchdowns. That's 7 touchdown drives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns. Yeah, thank you. I was making sure I had my stats correct, reading here on Stat Broadcast. The Tide, I was impressed with Tommy Rees's game plan. Basically, I thought this game's going to come down to how Tommy Rees wants to attack this LSU secondary, this LSU defense. And really, through parts of the game, Katie Wyndham might confirm, my man Clint Lamb to the other side might confirm. Alabama took a lot of shots down the field. I mean, right off, even right there in that second drive, you took a lot of shots down the field and put yourself into kind of third and medium, third and long situations. Jalen Milroe was just an animal. Jalen Milroe was just incredible. So, okay, for second play of the game, Jalen Milroe throws deep left to Jermaine Burton and misses him. And I'm thinking to myself, Tommy Rees, why are you dialing up some of these deep shots? Why are you dialing up all this action going down the field? Well, even though I didn't agree with that throughout the whole game, it turned out that really the deep shots down the field really made the secondary respect the Alabama receivers and opened up a lot of underneath places for Jalen Milroe to scramble and run. Yeah, you have the incompletion on the first drive, and Jalen Milroe ends up going 15 of 23 on the day for 219 yards, and people are like, okay, that's pretty good. But what was more special was he ran the football like an absolute stud. He was 20 rushes, 155 yards, 4 touchdowns, became the first Alabama quarterback to rush for 4 touchdowns in a game. And Tommy Rees really dialed up to set the running game up very, very well. Yeah, you have the deep shot misses that sometimes ended up putting the offense behind. Obviously, LSU responded to Alabama's first drive, punt with a first drive touchdown. And I thought, okay, well, the pressure is on Alabama right here to respond to the first touchdown. Don't get down into a 2-score hole. Don't punt it away and get into a 2-score hole. And the Tide never did, which was impressive throughout the evening. Alabama responds with a shotgun pass, a short pass that Kendrick Law turned and ran, and then Jam Miller rushed for 4 yards. Jalen Milroe rushed for 11. Then he hit Kobe Prentice for a 22-yarder, and boom, 23-yard rush, and Alabama is right back in the game, 7-7. He ended up getting the stop, and they ended up taking a 21-14 lead. And goodness gracious, probably the worst drive for the Alabama defense was the last drive of the first half. Golly, how infuriating was the last drive of the first half from an Alabama defensive perspective. You ended up with you ended up forcing Jaden Daniels into a 3rd and long that he busted for 40 yards. Dallas Turner had it in the grass. Dallas Turner, such a pivotal, so important. Dallas Turner made so many game-changing plays and was involved in so many game-changing plays. If Dallas Turner takes down Jaden Daniels on that 3rd and 9 on the last drive of the first half, backed up to LSU's punting, and Alabama's probably taking a knee at 21-14 going into the locker room settled and happy. But no, he escaped Dallas Turner's grasp and ultimately busted a 40-yard scramble. He hit another big old scramble that ended up with a penalty, blindside block on Aaron Anderson. And on 1st and 1 with 14 seconds left, he finds Kyron Lacey right over the middle, and our guy Christian Story comes over to try to make the tackle / defend the pass, and Kyron Lacey brushes him right off and walks into the end zone. The worst drive this Alabama defense has given up the entire year. Oh my gosh. I got up from my halftime position in the press box and I got, my hot dogs. Thanks so much to Bryant Denny staff. They did a great job, as they always do, putting out food and keeping the coffee full and keeping all the snacks on the deck. I appreciate them so much. But I got up disgusted. I got up so frustrated. So I thought to myself, if you're Nick Saban right now, what are you saying? If you're Nick Saban, you're probably peeling paint off the walls. And Terry and Arnold kind of commented that as much, that Kevin Steele at halftime, he said, if I repeat what Kevin Steele said at halftime, they're never going to let me do media again. So, yeah, the end of the half drive was absolutely disgusting, and you kind of left you with a huge sour taste in your mouth. I commented on my own X machine, on my own Twitter, at Joe Gaither 6, that it felt kind of like a shot to the gut, a bullet right to the gut, where you were playing very well defensively throughout really the whole half. Obviously, you gave up the two touchdowns, but you gave it the opening drive touchdown. You got to stop on fourth down. You forced them into a missed field goal on your first three drives, and you're thinking, okay, this is fine. Then, of course, look, LSU, their offense, you're not going to hold them under 10. They're going to score. They had an 8-play, 70-yard touchdown to make it 14-21. And so, just so infuriating. Or 14-14, excuse me. So infuriating. Alabama's offense responded again to go up 21-14, but they left them a minute left on the clock, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a little bit of a problem. And okay, you get them down there at 3rd and 9 with short time left in the half, and Jaden Daniels busted for 40 yards. Just heartbreaking. Look, it kind of goes back into the drive earlier. You missed with Jalen Key, ended up leaving the game from his safety position. Coach Saban calling it a leg injury, a quad injury. And today on BamaCentral.com, you can read his update from the Nailorstone Media Room, where Katie Wyndham wrote about Deontay Lawson and Jalen Key's injury. Coach Saban calling them day-to-day at the moment. But you replace Jalen Key with Christian Story, and which is fine. Christian Story, kid from Lynette, has been in the program for a long time. But Christian Story ended up missing a lot of tackles. Obviously, the tackle on Kyron Lacey right there, but just kind of, I don't know. I never want to say a kid is not ready to go, because you don't know what they're dealing with, and always you don't know what they're asked to do in game. But he looked like he wasn't quite ready to play winning football. So they came out of halftime and really moved Terry and Arnold into Malachi Moore's spot at the star, replacing Arnold with Trey Amos, and Malachi Moore moved back to his position, moved back into Jalen Key's position in the safety spot. So Malachi Moore is really your kind of jack of all trades, your kind of Swiss Army knife. And yes, Malachi did give up the long touchdown pass to Malik Neighbors on the very first drive of the game, but it was Malachi Moore's hand getting the stop on fourth down on the second drive. I think Malachi Moore, he may not be the best player in the star. He may not be the most athletic player to guard a guy like Malik Neighbors, and we kind of saw that a couple of different times. He gave up another reception down the sidelines, close to our press box area. But I think Malachi Moore's ability to know every position in the secondary and play at an acceptable level, at a good, he's a good player. He may not be a great player. To play at a good level allows you to move Terry and Arnold into the star position, and you made that change in the secondary, moving Trey Amos off the bench and into Terry and Arnold's position, taking Christian Story off the field. Christian Story gonna have to do a little bit more work to make some of those open field tackles and make a little bit better decisions in the secondary. But yeah, the end of the drive, the end of the half drive for the LSU Tigers left an absolute sour taste in your mouth, because what you didn't want to do is allow LSU to double up, go 14-0, last drive of the first half and first drive of the second half. Go 14-0 and go up 28-21. You had a 21-14 lead. You had a 21-14 lead with a minute left in halftime, and because of, that just happens when you kick off, you obviously receive in the second half, but it's important not to allow the other team to double up and go 14-0. Unfortunately, that's exactly what LSU ended up doing. Coming out of the first drive for the second half, they went, 9 plays, 75 yards straight down the field, scored a touchdown to go 28-21. All right, so the anxiety was happening in Bryant-Denny Stadium at that point. You're down 7. You've just given up probably your worst 2 drives, definitely your worst drive of the season, the last drive of the second half, or the first half, excuse me, the last drive of the first half, going, 5 plays, 75 yards in just a minute. Really 3 chunk plays, 3 big rushes, jumped you up and kind of broke your will just a little bit going into the locker room. So you've given up the next touchdown. You're at 28-21. And what does Alabama end up doing? They get their first drive of the second half and 9 plays, 70 yards, all on the ground. It sounds like Tommy Rees maybe got a little bit more of a talking to at halftime. Hey man, the running game, they did not stop it. They are not going to stop it. Alabama ends up rushing on the night, 6.3 yards per carry throughout the night. Jalen Milroe, he ended up going 7.8 yards per carry. Every time he touched the football, he was chunk play after chunk play. And I know Roydell Williams gets a little bit of hate for not being maybe the most talented running back, but Roydell, 6 carries, 56 yards and a touchdown, 9.3 yards a touch for Roydell Williams, Mr. Hueytown High School. The the pride of the Purple Gophers up there, just 45 minutes, an hour away from where I'm sitting right now. Roydell had himself a great game. Jace had a pretty good game, 14 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. And Jam Miller also getting a lot of touches. The thing about Jace and Jam Miller, they both had 1 reception apiece. Oh, chunk play. Jam Miller is 1 reception right over Harold Perkins for 35 yards right out of the backfield. And then Jace McClellan, his reception was off a total busted play. The defense is seeping in on Jalen Milroe. He keeps his head up and keeps his head down the field. And really, McClellan slips out of the backfield, 1 catch, 42 yards, and it was just the last second effort, the last second find for Jalen Milroe. Look, Jalen Milroe, I know he's not Bryce Young. I know he's not Tua Tagovailoa. I know he's not really even Mac Jones, and he's a little closer to Jalen Hurts, but goodness gracious, he has grown every single week. He missed some deep shots. He missed some deep shots against LSU. And you obviously wanted to hit some of those deep shots down the field against LSU. But his progression, his ability to, some of these deep shots aren't working. He takes underneath passes to C.J. Dupree. He obviously hit both running backs underneath. Kendrick Law with a couple of pop passes on the edge of the defense. So easy completions. Really, he just allowed, what did he do? He just did exactly what Nick Saban has been telling him to do the entire season. Be a point guard, young man. 8 different receivers catching passes throughout the night for Jalen Milroe. None of it was too over the top. I mean, Jace McClellan, his 42-yarder was the longest pass play of the game. And that pass probably traveled about 2.5 yards. And McClellan did the rest, finding open space. I mean, basically everybody had run off the secondary, and McClellan just did his work. So Jalen Milroe, incredible effort to answer the drive. You go back up 28-28, or excuse me, you go back and tie 28-28, and from there you're right there, still in the game. Huge play in the game. It came in the third quarter. Let me pull it up on my play sheet. Third quarter, 3 minute, second drive, right there. Yeah. So Jaden Daniels rushes for 8 yards, and then they get a first down with a second. So second set of plays in the second drive of the game. Jaden Daniels pass, he throws it short to Mason Taylor, tied in underneath, it was on a slider play that Caleb Downs and Malachi Moore came up and made a play, only giving up 3 yards. And so the Bryant-Denny cheered hugely after just a 3-yard reception. And Katie turned to me and said, "Oh, look, it's kind of funny. Everybody's cheering when it's only a 3-yard play. Instead of, you got to think about it, the last 2 drives, LSU's ripping off big play after big play after big play, and they've taken the lead. So you get the 3-yard stop, and then boom, next play, Jaden Daniels does escape, but not after a holding call. And so, bam, LSU is facing 2nd and 17. And you're thinking, okay, here's your chance. Here's your next chance for a defensive stop. The defense really played as well as it could have based on the talent and ability that LSU had. So at 2nd and 17, you're thinking this is one of those moments where you can get a stop. Jaden Daniels throws an incomplete pass, and he finds Mason Taylor underneath, and you end up getting off the field. You get off the field, and you're thinking, wow, that's a huge win for Alabama's offense. Alabama's defense. Now can Alabama's offense go down and retake the lead? And that's pretty much exactly what they did. Their drives in the second half were as efficient as really they could have been. 3 straight drives out of halftime with touchdowns. They go down and get a touchdown. They're up 20. They're up 35-28. They're up 35-28, and from there you've got pressure on Jaden Daniels. Pressure on Jaden Daniels to start to keep up just a little bit. You just punted on the last play, and the second play of the next drive, boom, Dallas Turner again. Dallas Turner again is in on a huge play, gets his hands up in the air, blocks the tips of Jaden Daniels' pass up in the air, and Terry Arnoldo comes behind and gets a huge turnover. I mean, look at these two. Look at these stats from Jaden Daniels and from Jalen Milroe. Both players passed for exactly 219 yards on the day. They're both 15 completions, Daniels with 24 attempts, Milroe with 23 attempts. So basically the exact same passing day. Now, Jaden Daniels, 2 touchdown passes, 1 interception. Milroe, no touchdown passes, no interception. The biggest difference is the interception here. Now, people, if you've been on social media for the last day and a half, 2 days, you've seen all the LSU fans crying about the hit. And we'll talk about the hit here in just a minute. Crying about should it have been targeting? They should have kicked Dallas Turner out of the game. Dallas Turner's a dirty player. XYZ, ABC. The difference in the game is not the Dallas Turner hit. It's the interception on the drive beforehand. You throw the interception backed up in your own zone. You set Alabama up basically on the 25-yard line. Yes, it was on the 25-yard line. And 3 plays later, Alabama's in the end zone again and is up 42-28. You've broken the game open at a 2-score game. I do think LSU's offense is really damn good. I do think LSU's defense is really bad. And I do think that when Alabama took a 2-score game in the game, especially with how much time's left in the ball game, you're right there at the end of you're at the beginning of the 4th quarter. You're up at the beginning of the 4th quarter. LSU knows you've got to go down and score and get a stop, which you haven't seen a single semblance of even slowing them down. You got to score and get a stop and get another score. Yeah, the scoring part's probably easy, but the stops are not. So you feel what I mean? Look, everybody's going to cry about the Dallas Turner hit, and everybody wants to cry about the horse collar. The horse collar. Now the horse collar at the end of the first half didn't matter because LSU scored a touchdown 2 plays later. 2 plays later, LSU's in the end zone, and people want to talk about a missed horse collar call. And granted, I do think that the officials can always be better. I think they can always be better. But really, your problems lie in turning the football over. Turning the football over when you're backed up in your own zone, especially with such a bad defense, is a huge issue. Alabama scores, goes up 42-28, and that's basically all she wrote. All right, so here we go. This is a bit off topic, but do you think we have a more clear picture going into next season as to who the number 1 wide receiver will be? I feel like this year it's been a different guy each game. Yeah, it has been a different guy each game. I mean, look, you had Burton and Bond being probably your best receivers on this game, but nothing really stood out from the wide receiver position in this past game. I think that really Isaiah Bond's going to still be here, and he'll probably be your number 1 guy, but you want to see continuous growth. Will Jalen Hale have a big off season? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the wide receivers. Now you're bringing in Rico Scott, Amari Jefferson, and maybe will Ryan Williams reclassify? That's still a huge big point. If Ryan Williams reclassifies, I expect him to be on the field as soon as possible. All right, still going in the comment section. That one was from Joe Will. This one's from Wendell Hare. Bryant Denny has been as loud the past 2 games as I've ever heard it before. Wendell Hare, do you think that it has been that loud because of maybe the uncertainty that's behind this team. You don't have Bryce Young out there basically never the ball's never hitting the ground. You don't have your 2016 defense. You don't have your 2011 defense. You don't have really the joyless murder ball that the Alabama fans are used to. So I think the Alabama fans are starting to tap into maybe, hey, we can be a part of this team. They do need us. Obviously, the players are very, very talented in their own right. But Coach has talked a lot about the impact from the crowd. I think they've really embraced it over the last couple of weeks, like maybe we can be a part of these games. Look, you had, 3 snap infractions from LSU. You had them burn all their timeouts in the first half early. Two of the 3 timeouts, 2 of their 3 timeouts early in the game. So even though that last drive was so poor at the end of the first half, LSU only had 1 timeout. I do credit the Alabama fan base for kind of influencing the snap infractions and causing the timeouts, the miscommunications. I do think the Alabama fan base was so loud on Saturday night. Here we go. Wendell Hare is going to set up my next topic. The only difference that hit made was the score. Without that hit, Bama would have won by 7 instead of 14. I think that, yeah, you're exactly right. So you have the interception, sets up Alabama on a short field. Alabama goes up 42-28. And that was your final score. Jayden Daniels gets the ball in the next, let's just hypothetically, Jayden Daniels does get the ball in the next drive, and a couple plays later, he is injured. He's injured, and LSU punts when they throw out little Nussmeier after the game. Garrett Nussmeier. And so, look, you have the injury. Dallas Turner's hit. Let's break it down just a little bit. All right. So you're 1-on-1. Dallas Turner cuts inside the tackle and has a direct path to the quarterback. Was it roughing the passer? Yes, it was roughing the passer, in my opinion, because not the timing. I mean, Jayden Daniels had just released the ball. The timing was bang, bang play. Dallas Turner stuck his face mask right in the sternum of Jayden Daniels, and he did land right on top of him. Coach Saban acknowledged it as much. Anytime there's contact to the head, then for a quarterback, that should be roughing the passer. They kind of changed and amended that rule this year. And so we've seen a couple of soft calls. That was, by definition, roughing the passer. You got contact to the quarterback's head. When you stick your face in the sternum of another man, the top of your head is very likely to hit his chin, his mouth, that area, and that's exactly what happened on that hit. Now, he did land right on Jayden Daniels, and that's not a part of the rule in college football. It is definitely an aspect of the rule in the NFL, and I think a lot of people were getting that confused. Oh, you landed right on him, you drove him into the ground. Now, did it make it look worse? Yes, it did. The problem, the issue with driving him into the ground or landing right on him, Jayden Daniels had no room for his head to recoil. When the back of his head hit the ground, there was no place for it to recoil. Dallas Turner was right on top of him, and therefore, the reason you get a concussion is the brain bounces around off the walls of your skull. Bounces around off the walls of your skull, and thus you have a concussion. When your skull can kind of move around with it, if you're watching me on YouTube and Facebook, you can kind of see this visually. If not, you just have to imagine it. When when the back of your head hits the ground, the ability to kind of bounce your head back forward mitigates the concussion risk a little bit. With Dallas Turner being right on top of him, there was no room for Jayden Daniels' face and head to bounce off the back of the turf, and thus his brain scrambled around inside his skull. So boom, you do have the injury there. And does it stink? Yes, because the game was pretty much over at that point. And I'll tell you guys, if you watch me at any point, you know I like close games, that the game was pretty much over at that point. So yeah, it did stink to have LSU's kind of hopes be dashed right there in that moment. But yeah, Wendell Hare's commenting, it was a good football play. It was not a dirty play. It was absolutely roughing the passer, sure, by definition of the law. And did it get marked off as such? Yes, it did. Let me remind you, he did get a flag for roughing the passer. Now, the other aspect that I think a lot of people are missing, a lot of people who watch it at home, and maybe a lot of people who were in the stadium not aware of things, they said, why didn't they review it for targeting? Well, Brian Kelly, after the game, was asked that exact moment or asked that exact question, and Coach Kelly acknowledged to the reporters. I was not in the Saban press conference this week. I was in the Coach Kelly press conference. He acknowledged to us that the officials said they were reviewing him up in the booth for targeting. Just because Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler, just because Gary and Brad don't say as much on the television broadcast, doesn't mean it's not happening. Maybe they didn't get the memo. Maybe it wasn't passed along to them. They didn't realize it, so it wasn't reviewed for targeting, according to the CBS folks. Why they didn't say so, but it was reviewed in the booth, and the booth decided it was not targeting. Now, let's just put my objectivity glasses on for just a moment. If it were called targeting, I wouldn't have cried that much. I wouldn't have complained that much. I think it was close enough to where you could have made the call either way. Now, was it obvious, like Bryce Young taking the headshot against Tennessee last year? No, it wasn't that obvious. His face, he hits him face up right in the sternum. And yeah, is the sternum, maybe a little high, whatever, but it's not in the head. It wasn't a direct shot to the head or neck area. And yeah, did he hit him with his helmet? Yeah, but it was with face up. Look, I think that it was a fine play. I think that the officials really did get it correct with their, this is roughing the passer, mark off 15 yards. The unfortunate aspect of it was that Jaden Daniels got hurt. No, look, you don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anybody to get hurt, whether they're wearing Alabama uniforms, LSU uniforms, Auburn uniforms, Tennessee uniforms, even Green Bay Packer uniforms. Yeah, I don't want anybody to get hurt. Football is a dangerous game. It's part of it. I had a couple major injuries in my average football career. Football, if you play football long enough, the injury rate is basically 100%. So it stinks that Jaden Daniels got hurt, absolutely, and it stinks for the neutral fan to see Jaden Daniels go out of that game. Garrett Nussmeier is going to be an okay quarterback, but he's nothing like Jaden Daniels, and nothing. He has nothing. He doesn't hold a candle to his skill set, both athletically and his understanding of the offense. So does it stink from a neutral perspective or an I love football perspective that he got hurt? Yes, it does. But I'm fairly in the camp that the officials didn't really affect the outcome of the game. Okay, let's just say it was targeting. Let's go back and say it was targeting. If it's targeting, you're throwing out Dallas Turner. All right, he's off the field. You throw him out, and that stinks. But Jaden Daniels is still hurt. Jaden Daniels is still in concussion protocol. And so you throw out Quandarius Robinson to replace Dallas Turner, and you keep playing the game. LSU is still down 14 points. You're still down 14 points. And Gary Nussmeier, are you leading LSU back? Is the defense going to get their stops and give you an opportunity to be back in the game? I think that's very unlikely. I think that what you see happen with Garrett Nussmeier didn't change. It doesn't change whether Dallas Turner is in the game or not. Yes, Dallas Turner is a menace, and yes, there's only 14 minutes left in the game, and Dallas Turner is held to block off the edge. But let's say he's sitting on the sidelines because he's been thrown out of the game for targeting. I don't see Garrett Nussmeier really even – I don't see him keeping up the same intensity. I don't see them being near as dangerous offensively with Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah, you're going to see more of Logan Diggs, but you can't run the football that much based on the fact that you're down 14 points and the clock is waning. The clock is dwindling. I think that really people want to be upset about something when they lose. And LSU, you played a good game. Just like Brian Kelly said to us in the press room, you played good. We played good. Good is not good enough when you play a top 10 team on the road. That was kind of the synopsis of his comments. We played good. We just made too many mistakes. We made too many mistakes that cost us the game. Your pre-snap penalties, 3 pre-snap penalties. You're holding on the second drive of the second half that set LSU back into 2nd and 17. Your interception, sure, not necessarily Jaden Daniels' fault. Ball gets tipped up in the air. And Terry Arnold makes a big play, great. But those details, those little moments are what it takes to compete with a top-level team. Alabama, we've been there before. Think back, second week of the season. Do you play good? I think Alabama played pretty good against Texas, but you didn't play elite. You didn't play elite. You threw 2 bad interceptions that set up the Texas offense in their own red zone. What happened with Alabama LSU? Jaden Daniels throws an interception, and Alabama set up in the red zone. The field is flipped. Alabama cashes in. Coach Saban's talked all year long that turnovers are worth 3.5 points. If you can get on the high side of that 3.5 points, I'm sorry, I don't think the game was inherently changed with the Jaden Daniels hip, with the injury. I don't think that even if the officials had called it targeting, that the outcome would have been any different. So, does it stink to have a huge controversial play? Yes, it does. You don't want the visitors, you don't want the losers to have something to hang their hats on, like, oh, if you would have hit that targeting call, we would have been. I don't think that would have changed the game. If you would have had the horse collar call at the end of the first half, it didn't change the game because LSU scored a touchdown anyways. Look, you ended up Alabama lost Jalen Key in the game. Alabama lost Deontay Lawson in the game. I don't know if you even noticed it, but Alabama lost Ja'Cory Brooks in the game. So there were injuries on the Alabama side as well. And if it had been Jalen Milroe getting injured and Ty Simpson or Tyler Buckner were out there, it would have changed the game for Alabama, even if you call targeting or not on the hypothetical LSU defender. The biggest problem for the LSU Tigers, it couldn't stop the run. It couldn't stop the run at all. Alabama with 288 rushing yards on the game. We already outlined who did what. Jalen Miller, 155. Jace McClellan with 60 plus. Jam Miller with 14, 15 plus. Roy Dell with 50, 60 plus. Like, you couldn't stop the run to save your life. The Alabama offensive line bullied you throughout the entire night. And yeah, Caden Proctor, you gave up the first sack of the day. You gave up the only sack of the day to Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins he's on scholarship too. You end up throwing, Will Reichert, you missed 2 field goals. You know what? It just stinks sometimes. That's what happens. If Will Reichert makes those field goals, you go up 17-7, you go up 45-28. I mean, the last field goal, not necessarily that important. But the outcome is pretty much sealed by the interception. The interception right at the end of the third quarter sets up Alabama right in their own red zone. Alabama's been running their tails off, rushing the ball all game long, hitting LSU in the face all game long. Does it stink? 100% it stinks. I want to see Jaden Daniels back out on the field this weekend if he can clear concussion protocol. He's a great player. I want to see all kinds of great players. It makes college football better. The challenge, the anxiety that I felt in the Brian Steady press box, that you felt watching it wherever you watched, was all created by Jaden Daniels' special ability. I really think that the interception mattered a whole lot more than the Dallas Turner hit. And really, even if the officials had called it targeting and taken Dallas Turner out of the game, I don't think that it would have changed the outcome at all, because I really think that the drive earlier, going up 2 scores, was much more important. Now, do you want to call Dallas Turner dirty? I don't agree with that assessment. Wendell Harris commented earlier, it was a good football play. I do think it's a good football play. I think that really it was, it's one of those unfortunate things where you take a hard hit and you're hurt. I don't think it's a dirty play, but if you want to sit over there and say Dallas Turner is dirty, I'm probably not going to change your mind. And so I'm not even going to try. Dallas Turner, what I will say is this. Dallas Turner has been a part of a lot of big-time, game-changing plays throughout the whole year. He has the end of the game sack against Arkansas. He has an end-of-the-game sack against Tennessee. He makes the tipped ball play against LSU. Look, I know we all love Will Anderson, and Will Anderson, great player. But I think that Dallas Turner this year is having a year that is in the Will Anderson kind of a class, in the Will Anderson company. So I'm really proud of him so far this year, and I think that he's been just a joy to watch, really a joy to watch. All right, so we're going to keep it rolling here. I got Will Reichert on my sheet, and let's talk about Brian Kelly real quick. The biggest problem for me was Brian Kelly throwing Jaden Daniels back out on the field after the hit. He throws him out there back on the field after the hit, and he stands there. Then he ends up taking a timeout. Taking the timeout, Jaden Daniels goes into the tent again, and we never see him again. Brian Kelly was going to throw his ass back out there and just ride or die with the concussed Jaden Daniels. And come on, Brian Kelly, that ain't right. That's not right at all. I think that he is, I think Brian Kelly is a very good coach as far as X's and O's and organizationally speaking and attention to details. But Brian Kelly has shown to make questionable, unfortunate decisions when it comes to player safety, personnel safety, staff safety throughout his entire time as a college football coach. Oh, yeah. And Wendell Harris says it again. Brian Kelly needs to stop throwing his players under the bus. He basically, in postgame, we got to play better. We got to play better. We got to play better. He only a couple of times said we got to coach better. He was asked about Jalen Milroe. He was asked about Jalen Milroe's running ability, and he says, we had several calls that the players did not communicate, did not get that would have stopped Jalen Milroe's running ability. He said we had a couple of calls that would have had defensive ends looping around right into where Jalen Milroe scrambled, but the call was not communicated well on the field. So, yeah, Brian Kelly, I do think he's a good X's and O's coach. I do think that he's a good organizational coach, and I do think, he's a good recruiter. But good gracious, he makes some interesting personnel choices. Throwing Jaden Daniels back out there on the field, I guess is like one of the worst. No, it's one of the least bad things. When you have a videographer death on your record, yeah, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Puts him up there in a big old crane lift, and the crane lift is up there in a storm, I believe is the way that goes. You got to keep your people safe. First and foremost, if Jaden Daniels had taken another hit in that game, already concussed, and granted, I think Jaden would have probably tried his butt off to keep playing. If Jaden takes another hit from Dallas Turner, from Justin Aboigbe, from Jaheim Otis, from just pick your poison, pick your player, pick your Alabama defender. If he takes another hit in that game after the Dallas Turner hit, I'm sorry, that would be you'd be in dangerous territory. You'd be in very dangerous territory, in my opinion. And I'm not a headache expert. I'm not a doctor. I do watch a lot of football. I have a decent experience with concussions. You put Jaden Daniels in serious risk right there. And you're lucky that Jaden took a timeout. I guess you're probably thinking, damn, why'd you take one of my timeouts? But you got to play player safety first. You're playing Texas A&M. You're playing, Florida. The rest of the season, the rest of the season is more important than the last 14 minutes of that Alabama game when your player is clearly not operating at his best self. And yes, I do admire toughness. I admire playing through injury. Yes, I do. I think that's a great quality to have, but you don't mess with the brain. You don't mess with the head. You don't mess with someone's thoughts and someone's future in that way. Am I going to be limping around when I'm 50 because of knee injuries? Sure, but I will still have my brain. I will still have my thoughts, and ideally everything, all the important parts will be there. I'll be able to communicate with my family, with my friends, and hopefully with you guys. Yeah, may I limp around a little bit because of knee injury? Okay, yes. And maybe I pushed through it a couple of different times? Okay, yes. But you can't push somebody through a head injury. Brian Kelly, shame on you. Shame on you for that. What else y'all want to talk about today? Ooh, Jalen Key, Christian Story, Malachi Moore, already kind of talked about that. Will Riker misses his first two kicks of the season. And look, it was bound to happen eventually, mathematically speaking. Just a tough time. Really, the first kick, much more important than the second kick. Would have put you up 17-7. Look, there's no time to talk about Will Riker. Let's make a change. ABC, no way. Obviously, in Riker, you trust. But just an unusual thing, a little bit of a surprising thing. Kind of already had my field goal tweets already written out, and when he missed them, I was like, oh, that's a unfortunate thing. That's a surprising thing. I don't think that this is going to be a problem going forward. It's just the first week of November. It's just November. The weather changes. The atmosphere changes a little bit. Kicking changes just a little bit. He made all his extra points. I think that Will Riker is going to be A-okay and just fine. There's not going to be anybody any tougher on themselves than Will Riker this past weekend, missing those kicks. He's going to figure out why. He's going to figure out why. My man Wendell Harris. Bama football is good once the kicker misses a few field goals. That's exactly right. Coach Saban talking about this being the most complete game that they played. And I know a lot of people didn't feel like it was a shootout, but for a long time, it was back and forth. It was a shootout. Yes, the last quarter was kind of all Alabama. That fourth quarter, Alabama Anaconda had them choked out fully. And it was a lot of fun to be down there. Coach Saban was very happy with the win. And look, Alabama, as we kind of put a wrap on it, Alabama has got to put it behind them quickly. Yeah, Kentucky is not that good of a football team. They're in my middle tier of the BamaCentral SEC power rankings, but Kentucky is good enough to challenge you, especially at home. Kentucky is good enough to put some fear into you if you're not playing up to snuff, if you're not playing to the best of your abilities. 11 a.m. game this weekend over in Lexington. Alabama's going to have to put it behind them fairly quickly. Look, I know that the last three games that are on the Alabama schedule at Kentucky, UTC at home, and at Auburn don't necessarily look very scary from an analyst perspective, but I think at Kentucky is not going to be the easiest. I do think Alabama's going to win pretty comfortably, but if Alabama walks in, sleepwalks, 11 a.m. kickoff, if Alabama has a lot of penalties, you go back to the very beginning, to earlier in the conversation. If you have turnovers, if you're not awake, if you're not ready to play, I mean, Alabama did not really play that well against Arkansas at 11 a.m. here at home. Yes, you had homecoming festivities that might have distracted things a little bit more as well, but Alabama did not play very well against Arkansas. You took a 3-point win. You sleptwalked through that game. You can't really sleepwalk against Big Blue Nation. You want to go ahead and wrap up the SEC West. You wrap up the SEC West with one more SEC win. You want to go ahead and get it on Saturday because, as Malachi Moore said on Monday, or on today, over in the Naylor Stone Media Room, that he said we have no more mulligans. We're basically playing an elimination game every single week after losing to Texas. Hopefully the guys take that to heart. Go out and handle their business against Kentucky, because if they're focused and if they're playing well, it will not be that close of a game. It won't be. And so, look, and UTC won't be a close game, even if you're playing K. Caruth at quarterback. If you want to go ahead and give Dylan Lonergan the start, whoever, it's going to be a pretty much of a cakewalk beating down the Mocs. But last week of the year at Auburn is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. Look, Auburn won 2 in a row. You can make fun of their struggle win against Vanderbilt if you want to. You can make fun of them beating Mississippi State if you want to. But 2 wins in a row gives any team confidence. And I do think that the Iron Bowl down there on the plains, look, it'll be their Super Bowl. They'll be fighting. They'll probably be fighting for bowl eligibility. It's going to be their Super Bowl, and they're going to be wanting to ruin an Alabama season. So the last 3 weeks for Alabama football are not going to be easy, even if, UTC will be, but the schedule is still going to be one that Alabama needs to take seriously. All right, let's get out of here for the day and set up the evening. I'm going over to Coleman Coliseum. Alabama women. The women's basketball is tipping off against Alabama State at 4:30. And then Alabama men is playing Morehead State, I believe, at 7. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be over there for BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Joe Gaither6, on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff at Joe Gaither6. Send me your comments, your questions, queries, and complaints right there. Tomorrow, we're going to be hearing from Brian Pasnick. We'll hear from Brian Pasnick to talk about Alabama basketball, their season opening game tonight with Morehead State, how they looked, and hopefully it comes out to a pretty comfortable win. I think Ken Palm has Alabama as a 17, 18-point favorite right now for the game tonight. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Alabama basketball starts tonight. We'll hear from Brian Pasnick tomorrow on the program. We'll hear from LaRon McClain on the program as well. Look, if you read my Julian Sayin piece on Saturday and you want to hear more, you can subscribe to the program right here at Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon. That conversation is on all those podcast outlets. You can check out my quick conversation with Julian Sayin. It's about 15, 16 minutes. It's on the podcast outlets on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon as well. So you should go ahead and hit a subscribe button. You can hear those bonuses and hear that conversation with Julian Sayin. He talked about the Alabama LSU game. He talked about early enrolling. He talked about guys that he's still recruiting for Alabama in this 2024 class. It was a great time hearing from Julian Sayin, and they're going into their open division playoffs this weekend, and he talks a little bit about that as well. So for you guys, I appreciate everybody watching us. Wendell Hare, thanks so much for commenting. Joe Will, thanks so much for commenting. You can always comment on the program live at Joe Gaither 6 on the Facebook machine, or post game comment. Leave your comments. I'll always see them as well right there at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you can get the Joe Gaither Show, right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.